Welcome to Munich, a city of Germany famous for its beer, lederhosen, and massive instruments. This city might seem simple at first appearance. Unknown to most of the world, Munich holds one of the biggest unsolved mysteries of all time. This is my journey of how one unanswered question drove me to investigate 5 cities across Europe. Little did I know that these cities would give me more questions than answers. Has history burned the bridge of evidence, or will I find a clue that will break the jaws of ignorance? I'm your host, Harvey Kirshner, and after a short 8.5-hour flight to Munich International Airport, I set out to unveil one of the greatest mysteries in all of Europe. After a short ride with a very expressive bus driver, my investigation began. The first thing I noticed about Munich is that there are bike lanes everywhere. Lydia almost got hit. It was crazy.
Goodbye, Munich Airport. Thank you to all my German friends, Dankeschön, for giving us the wrong directions to a Lufthansa bus. Like 3 guys that said, oh, Terminal C, yeah, Terminal C, no, Terminal D. And then there was this one guy who said, you gotta go across the street, down, and I was like, I don't see any stairs. And I'm like, that guy's, everyone else, everyone's saying something different, but I'm like, I'm not believing that guy. And guess who was right? That guy. Because a Lufthansa bus drove by and went like down and like into this tunnel. I was like, we gotta go down. So check out all these bikes, bro. So Lydia just asked me, is this the good part of town or is this the medium side of town? And I'm like, definitely the medium side. Look at this wonderful medium town. Just such mediocre architecture. Goodbye, Lufthansa bus. Maybe one of the warmest buses I've been on in my whole life. And also that driver, dude, man. That guy's funny. Not sure what he said, but it didn't sound very nice. What'd you think of that bus ride?
Started falling asleep actually.
Oh, really? It was not a boring bus ride. I'm surprised you were falling asleep.
Oh, I'm just tired.
This is what's called a bike lane, guys. And literally just rocked right in the middle of it, and 2 bikers were like, oh, Brett. And they went completely around her. They like encircled her. Was that scary?
Yeah, well, you called out, you're like, Lindy. I was like, I'm dying.
I mean, I walked in a second after I said that, so I'm not any better. Oh, check out this archway. Took us like 10-15 minutes to cross this one intersection. I don't know how the bike lanes work. It's a good time. Yeah, they don't talk about Europe being dangerous, but it kind of is. Donald. But if you're Arabic, but you want to be American, then you got McDonald's, but then you've got McDonald's. Check out these masterpieces. What do you think?
Lydia and I are about to walk into the largest Renaissance church north of the Alps. Its name is St. Michael's. It was built as a centerpiece for the Counter-Reformation. And apparently the architect in St. Michael's Church was so lavish and extravagant that it's nearly bankrupted all of Bavaria. The same year the church was finished, King Wilhelm V abdicated the throne and let his son deal with a massive financial problem. Little did I realize this church held a clue that could be vital in helping me solve the biggest mystery in Munich. Did you see the clue? Watch again in slow motion. That, my friend, is Ludwig II, King of Bavaria. He is most known for his fairy tale castles, deep love for art, and mental insanity.
Probably here I'm thinking, what have I got myself into?
Yeah, so apparently he built his castles not for political power, but as a retreat to live out his fantasy world based on German myths. And he is buried right here, under this church of St. Michael. Ludwig II became extremely nocturnal and reclusive, probably because he didn't like the fluorescent lights at his office job. Sometimes he took carriage rides in the moonlit nights through the mountains. He reportedly tried at one point to build a floating palace. Now you might be thinking, this Ludwig II guy seems like a pretty stand-up dude. And he's just like your brother Irvin. And you'd be right. But to find out why Ludwig II is important, this is the Frauenkirche, one of the most famous churches in all of Munich. Its domes were built to resemble the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. It's interesting that the original architect, George von Halsbach, actually ran out of money before he finished the church because it was originally supposed to have spires. So several decades later, the domes were added when the funder of the church received more money. As I first walked in, I noticed there was a huge crowd at the entrance of the church, and I didn't understand why. So I just walked past and continued on, and I found this statue. What do you think?
I'm not too sure. I thought it was
Nebuchadnezzar just doesn't... No, it's got to be something way deeper than that. Headless man. No feet. No head. What's going on?
Little did I know that the Church of Our Lady, the Frauenkirche, turned out to hold the mystery I was looking for. The rest of the church was sparsely populated, and honestly, the interior was spacious but rather simple.
Nebuchadnezzar just doesn't... No, it's got to be something way deeper than that.
This is complete speculation, but it could have been a statue of Jesus. I'm seeing the long hair, but who broke it and why is the face removed? I immediately began to do research, but every website that I looked up on the Frauenkirche had no information. So, Lydia and I continued on our way, and maybe the rest of Munich will give me some insights on this statue and why this church is significant.
Man, this fish had a bad day, bro.
Thank you.
He ate a little bit too much.
So there's a strange tradition associated with this fountain. Butchers and fishermen would wash their meat here before selling it in the open square. But after wild parties, the butchers would baptize their young apprentices, and this was supposed to symbolize the washing away of sins? What?
Thoughts so far on Munich?
good.
Mukin, as they'd call it.
You can, like, good.
Did you pay to get into the bathroom?
0.
Really? Why? You're supposed to pay.
Oh, I thought you were actually. I don't know. You said we could go in. It was in the grocery
She's
store.
like, poor Americans. They don't know anything.
You're supposed to get it free if you go into someone's place.
That is like super cool.
That church in the distance is called the Theatine Church of Saint Cajetan. And apparently it was built because of a king that prayed to the patron saint of good birth, Saint Cajetan. And when he had a kid, he wanted to honor this patron saint. And according to some locals, you can hear the whispers of the saints if you stand under the big dome.
Lydia loves it when people are in her way.
Oh my goodness. I just think people are in my way when I'm trying to walk.
She's like, you're not a human, you are just an obstacle.
No, I didn't say that.
That's kind of what she meant though.
So
So Lydia was very adamant that we'd get this $4 loaf of bread because it's cheap. She's like, I don't want to spend money on food. And then, yeah, it's super chewy. And then she's like, hey, can I have the rest of your sandwich that you bought? I don't want this bread anymore. I was like, now wait a minute. That's not how this works.
But you gave it to me.
Now I gotta carry this too. That's
Hey, it's good bread.
Why didn't you eat it more of it then?
I did.
I think most of this was me. Welcome to the Sea of People, where you have the most beautiful building in town. There's also just a mob. With much beauty comes many humans. We got a statue man over here. What do you think of him? He's really freaky.
There's also this palace called the Munich Residence, which had a scorch mark made by the devil. But now you can't find it apparently.
Bruh.
So if you're like me, you're beginning to see the pattern. The people in Munich are pretty superstitious, or they just like making up all these legends for their kids. Either one. But all these superstitions and legends are harmless, right? Surely there's no superstition that could permanently damage the way some people view the church, right?
Isaiah 53.
And you know what? It's time. We have waited long enough. Lydia and I are going back to the Church of Our Lady, the Frauenkirche, to see what this, that, and those all have in common. The year is 1488. George von Hausbach has almost finished the cathedral room for the Frauenkirche. After only 20 years, a remarkable feat for that short amount of time. However, he has completely exhausted his funds, and now he's in trouble. So, he makes a deal with the devil. The devil will finance the rest of the building of the church if George von Hausbach agrees to take out all the windows. The devil does this because he hates light, and he knows that a church without any light, without any windows, will be a horrible place to worship God. And so, George von Hausbach agrees and finishes the Frauenkirche. He invites the devil in to inspect his work once he's done. And the devil enters the church and sees no light because of the columns that were set up in place, blocking the view of the windows. The devil stomps on the floor with delight, leaving a footprint that is still visible to this day. However, he walks forward and then realizes that the columns were blocking his view. And then he turns into a wind and disappears, running outside the church, trying to blow the church down, realizing that he had been tricked by George von Hausbach. And then George von Hausbach turns into a pumpkin. A mysterious figure starts eating pumpkin pie on the left dome. And you can, if you go outside, you can still hear that mysterious figure today.
What is your test?
Guess what? It's just too hot.
Now, this might seem like an ordinary legend to you, but what if I told you that the legend of the Devil's Footprint made the Frauenkirche the most visited church in Munich? And many visitors come simply to take a photo of the footprint and then leave. Some people have even referred to the Frauenkirche as the Devil's Church. This, my friend, is a legend that has gone too far. It's crazy to me to think that a place meant to glorify God, a place with beautiful organ music, known to bring awe and reverence, is now almost completely synonymous with this legend about the devil. Now, it's important to note that the vast majority of Catholics think that the Devil's Footprint is just folklore. The problem is when non-religious people see superstitions some Christians believe in, such as the evil eye, the burning of St. Joseph, and this legend about the Devil's Footprint, and begin to conclude that faith in Jesus is built on legends and traditions, rather than science and reasonable faith. So now the question has become, who made this footprint in the Frauenkirche, and why? And right off the bat, I have got one primary suspect, Ludwig II. Ludwig II was a very strange guy. So he almost strangled his brother when he was a child, and he frequently experienced hallucinations according to some sources. But most importantly, he is known as the fairy tale king. It says that he almost abdicated the throne several times during his reign because he wanted to escape reality and live in a fairy tale. So, my question to you is it too far-fetched to say that a king that is obsessed with architecture, obsessed with fairy tales, could have heard a story about a devil in a church as a child and wanted to make it a reality? My theory is that Ludwig II held a secretive operation unknown to the common people, where he and church officials secretly installed the footprint in the Frauenkirche. I began meticulously searching the internet for answers to see if this could be a possibility. And navigating through German websites is tough, guys. I do not recommend that. But anyway, I found out this theory was held a lot of ground until I found one certain detail, that the legend of the Devil's Footprint was actually first recorded in the 15th century. So the legend is actually 300 years older than Ludwig II. So that all means only one thing. I must go to Salzburg to see if I can find any evidence there, and maybe see if this footprint occurred naturally. Will I be successful in finding any evidence, or will I fail? Check out this bus station. We got an update.
I'm dead.
It's really hot in here. It's just as bad as Lufthansa. Come on, Flixbus. I thought you were better.
That's a double decker. How come we didn't get the double decker one? That's not fair. So Lydia has just told me that I need to stop complaining.
This is weird. My phone hurts.
Lydia fixed her phone. She was super sad that she couldn't take B-reels.
It works, look. It didn't work.
Aw, cute Lydia.
So we got an update. Lydia's phone is now not working again. So, not a backup mode of transportation. And my phone, even though I'm filming on it, is 9% battery. So, going back to the olden days, I've written out a little map, and hopefully that